That will never be broken.
They hit big shots. I think the Clippers have no identity.
Oh, look at that reaction. Look at that reaction. What do you say? What do you know? It's the full Monte Sports Show. It is Sunday, March 20th, 2021. I am your host, Monte Perez, a.k.a. the Sports Whisperer. Breakfast of Champions right here, people. May not look that appetizing, but it's frozen blueberries, plain Greek yogurt, mango, pistachios. I'm sorry, not pistachios, cashews, protein, smoothie. Unbelievable. Gives me the energy in the morning. Just made that. So I am all fired up, ready to go. You can follow me on social media. On Twitter, MonteJP231, and on TikTok, Monte Perez 231, Monte Perez 231. We are now at over 300,000 views on TikTok. We are at over 300,000 views on TikTok. So thank you all for supporting my sports videos, my sports clips. Cheers to everyone. Thank you so much. We have the best guests all across the country. This week is no exception. We're going to have Gus Frerotte, former NFL quarterback, host of Huddle Up with Gus, going to join us, talk about all the crazy moves in the NFL offseason. And then, which is coming to be an annoying part of the show, George Lopez. Not that he's annoying, but his teams are. Other than the Lakers, who won a championship 2 years ago, the Dodgers may have the best offensive lineup in the history of baseball. His Rams just won a Super Bowl. They're signing Allen Robinson from the Chicago Bears. The rich get richer. I don't know what's going on in LA, but it just seems like everything these teams do, they spend way more money than every other team, and they just keep winning. So George will join us for that. Keep the comments coming. We start each show, of course, with the good, the bad, and the funny. So we have two goods this week. Let's start with Seton Hall, former Seton Hall player, St. Peter's coach, Shaheen Holloway. For those of you who don't know, Shaheen Holloway played in a super talented Seton Hall team that went to a Sweet 16. He was the point guard. Now, I worked the Seton Hall camp. I was the commissioner. And what they do when college basketball coaches run their camp, they usually have the players coach the little kids. The kids love it. But these Seton Hall kids, they didn't want to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning for games. So half of them would come in hungover, tired. They didn't care, barely coach. But I will say this, Shaheen Holloway was talking trash every day to me. Monty, my team's going to win. Coach Mont, my team's going to win. His team won the championship. Now, look, I didn't know he was going to go on to be a successful coach and a St. Peter's team that beat Kentucky and then won last night. But I will say this, where all the other players were just casually, just collecting a paycheck, really didn't care that much. He cared. And one thing I will say about him, he was so competitive. And when he won the championship, he gave this long speech how kids will always remember winning. So I could see how he's having success. I could see how his players love him. Great story. St. Peter's was like 2 miles from where I lived in Jersey City. It is like a community college. That's how small it is. Not one of his players at St. Peter's, not one, was a big time recruit. Not one of them. None of them were being recruited by a Duke, by a Kentucky, by Michigan State. And he has his team playing well. They've won 2 games. He's going to probably leave St. Peter's in the next year or two and go on to bigger and better things. I hope he does not go to Seton Hall as alma mater, because I want this guy to go to a big program where they have a football team, where they have alumni supporting them. So I want nothing but the best for him. Great trash talker. The kids loved him. And he started off early on, winning a championship at Seton Hall basketball camp. So that's part of the good. Let's get to the second part of the good. Listen, I know a lot of people want to talk bad about the NFL and certain things, and there's a lot of things wrong with the NFL. But I will say this: we are in March Madness. No one's really talking about March Madness on social media, other than when the games are on. The baseball season is about to start. The NFL keeps stealing headlines. I've never seen an NFL offseason like this where, let's be honest, every day there's a different move with a huge star changing teams. Now, my friend Jared Milligan, a frequent guest on the show, said something to me the other day that he might be right. He said the AFC West has the most talented players in that division in the history of the NFL. Now, I don't know if that's true, but let's be honest. They are stacked. And no one's talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, who went to 3 straight AFC championship games. They're talking about the Chargers. They're talking about the Broncos. They're talking about the Raiders. I mean, if you don't think Russell Wilson is going to have phenomenal success in Denver, if Peyton Manning could win a Super Bowl there, now I know it was a different team. That defense was stacked. But you got to be honest here. This AFC West division now is star-studded, which leads me to the bad. Packer fans, you're not a dumb group of people. You're smart. How can you buy what the Packers are selling? Now, the Packers gave Aaron Rodgers $200 million. Good for him. Make all the money. I'm one of the few people, broadcasters, who always say, hey, the owners are making money. If you're a player, get the most money you can. But in a salary cap league, you can't have it both ways. Remember Kobe Bryant's last year? Kobe Bryant came off an injury and he was complaining that he no longer had talent. And then the Lakers gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award contract. They made him the highest paid player his last 2 years, $48 million. Good for you. Good for you, Aaron Rodgers. Get that money. But you can't have it both ways. You can't complain that you don't have talent around you in a salary cap league when you're going to be making $50 million a year. Now, people want to say that Davante Adams was leaving no matter what. He wanted to go play with his best friend, his college quarterback, Derek Carr. And that's cool. But the Packers came out and said, we were going to give him a little more money. Stop the BS. You weren't going to give him more money. You franchise tagged him first. If you wanted him so badly, you would have gave him a long-term deal. So I'm not buying what the Packers are selling at all. In life, if you're a boss, make sure your employees feel appreciated. If you're married, you're dating someone, make sure your husband or wife is appreciated, desired, lusted. Because I got to be honest with you, there's going to be a coworker that's going to be flirting with them. There's going to be some loser from high school that's going to try to rekindle that old flame. The Packers did not make Davante Adams feel wanted. They franchise tagged him. I'm not saying he wasn't going to leave. But now, as a Packer fan, I'm saying you lowballed the guy. You didn't do right by him. I'll give you an example. I was working for this company, and my boss quit. He came in on Monday, and he left on Friday. Gave him 5-day notice. The owner of the company has a meeting that following Monday, and he says, I'm going to make Monte the new boss. It was a shock to me. So after the meeting, he says, how do you feel? I said, I'm all for it. I said, but let's do this. Give me a couple weeks, figure out if you like me, figure out if I like the position. If not, I'll just go back to doing what I was doing. He said, no problem. So after a month, we meet, and I say, I want the position. He said, Monte, we love you. We love what you're doing. We'll give you the position. I said, okay, let's talk finances. He's like, I'm going on a business trip. I will get back to you next week. Week goes by, 2 weeks, a month goes by. He never gets back to me. I start looking for a new job. I go into his office after I get a new job and I say, David, it's Monday. My last day is Friday. He's like, why? Why? I said, David, I've been in this new position for months. You haven't given me a raise. He's like, no, no, I'm going to give you a raise. He goes, I'll give you $5,000 right now, cash, and I'll give you a $10,000 raise. I said, David, I already made up my mind. I didn't feel appreciated here. I said, you put me in a new position for 3 months. You never compensated me. Devontae Adams has 238 catches in the last 2 years. And they went out and they signed Aaron Rodgers to big money. They franchise tagged Devontae Adams first. So I don't want to hear this BS from the Packers that we were going to give him the money. You let him walk like a guy or a woman who doesn't pay attention to their boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or wife. You're giving them an excuse to leave. I hope Devontae Adams has tremendous success, and I think he will with Hunter Renfrow, Waller, Jacobs. The Raiders' offense is going to be scary. And Aaron, good for you. You got your money now. You're going to be throwing to rookie wide receivers for the next 2 to 3 years. End of story. That's it. So I'm not buying what the Packers are selling. Oh, you Packer fans coming at me saying he was going to leave anyway. If someone's going to leave a job, you make them know that you want them. The Packers didn't do that. End of story. Now to the funny. Okay, so we all heard the expression, eat my shorts, Bart Simpson's. So a man gets pulled over for a DUI. He takes off his pants and starts eating his shorts because he thought the cotton would take away the breathalyzer test. This is a true story. You know, you guys always ask me, are you making these stories up? That's why I constantly have to find these articles so you guys believe me. The police came up to this gentleman and he's eating his shorts because he was so drunk he thought that the cotton in his underwear would take away the alcohol. Would take away the alcohol. And again, whatever you want to say about Florida, I live here. We have the dumbest criminals. I don't have any fact like Joe said, but I know I'm right. Remember when Joe on my show said, Monte, I don't have any facts, but I know you're wrong? I don't have any facts that Florida has the dumbest criminals, but I know I'm right. I know I'm right. All right, let's keep the comments coming. Yes. Listen, I mean, they are facts. The Packers just did them wrong. They did them wrong. Greg will always attack Packer fans. Always attack Packer fans. Always attack the Packers. And yes, Jersey City, Shaheen Holloway, it is such a small school. I coached him when he was, running the camp. Great job by him. Get the mimosas ready. Okay, one of our favorite guests right now, former NFL coach, host of Huddle Up with Gus, Gus Frerotte. Gus, how are you today? And where is that? Where are you?
Hey, buddy. I'm just in my wife's little office area. This is where, when she works from home,
How's that
sits
artwork?
in here. It's zen for her, so that's why you see all the stuff behind me.
I like it. That's awesome. Thanks so much for joining Gus. We're at about 300,000 views on TikTok, and I gotta be honest with you. Every time I post a clip from you on my show, it gets between 6 to 15,000 views. So thank you so much for contributing. You're a huge part of the success we're having. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be here. You know what might get you even more views if you just eat your underwear. That might really pump your views up.
Yeah, I think it would. I think it would. I think that would be. I mean, every week I do a segment, and I don't want to limit it to Florida. I do segment on like just the dumbest criminals, the funniest criminals, and it's always Florida. A couple weeks ago, there was an article about how a guy tried to rob a Wendy's. He threw an alligator into the drive-through window to try to steal money. I mean, it's just insane what's going on here.
Well, people are struggling all over, and you're going to see all kind of crazy stuff. We've seen it in our hometown. Somebody robbed a Fox's Pizza at noon. I'm like, nobody's buying pizza at noon. You better wait till like 11 o'clock at night on a Friday.
Exactly, when they're closing.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people out there that are struggling, and I think it's making them do crazy things.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of crazy, not along the same lines, but free agency. I've never seen this many stars switch teams. high profile stars, big money stars. But Gus, you were in the league for 15 years. Talk about free agency. I would look at it as an exciting moment to really go out, make more money, find your particular team that you want. You've experienced this. You've been on several teams. Was it stressful for you and your family?
Well, it always is when you have to move somewhere new. You have to play with new teammates and understand a new system, whether it's offense or defense. You have to get to know the coaches, the staff, everybody in the building. And then if you have a family, you have to move. You have to find a house, whether you're going to rent or buy. You have to find schools for your kids. So there's always something when you are a free agent and you go to a new team. It's very difficult. There's so many factors that go into it. And then let alone it's a year-round job now. It's not like there's a whole off season. Yeah, we call it the off season, but training starts right away, and that's why training camps are much shorter now.
How much goes into it? You mentioned this a few weeks ago, where players will go somewhere where maybe they don't know a lot of the players, but they know a coach and they know a system. Is learning a new system like learning a new language, or am I'm making it more difficult than it is?
Well, I mean, obviously, when you've played long enough, you've done everything that there is to do. All the routes are the same, but the hardest part that comes in is when there's new terminology. So it is like learning a new language. If you go to a coach that's familiar and you've kind of been in the same system, then it's not as bad. But if you go to a new system, say from the digit system to the West Coast, you're going to learn a whole different language. So it's really interesting to see guys that do that, and can they grasp it? Can they bring it along? I did that many times in my career since I played for 7 teams, but it's never easy. There's a lot of studying, a lot of work involved, and it takes a lot of time.
Gus, will a smart offensive coordinator adapt to like a Peyton Manning and use certain terminologies? Will they make it easier for him, or are offense coordinators, for the most part, hey, this is my system, it's worked, let's do it? Because if I'm taking a Russell Wilson now going to Denver, I'm going to say, what terminology, what do you, and I'm sure Russell will have a lot of impact there, right? So a good offense coordinator, will he adjust to his quarterback with terminologies?
I think it depends on who the quarterback is. Certain guys just come in, and quarterbacks come in. They don't have a lot of experience. They're not a veteran. They're coming in. The offense coordinator is like, this is what you're going to learn. This is the offense I run. Now you bring somebody like Peyton Manning, Russell Wilson in. You're going to try and make them as comfortable as you can to get them involved in the system, so that the whole playbook is open to them. If you don't open the whole playbook to them, then you're limiting your team and what they can do offensively. So I think it just depends. And if I ever would coach, I'd want to make sure that I'm adapting to the quarterback and not the quarterback adapting to all my schemes, because I did that. I went from a digit system to West Coast, and it didn't really fit me. It wasn't. I loved the team and loved the town and everything like that, but the system didn't fit me, and it was hard for them to adjust to me. I was more of a big drop back passer, throw the ball downfield, and the West Coast is more, yeah, you're going to get some of that stuff, but it's more, get the ball out of your hand, make sure you know where all the hots are coming from, double slants, things like that. That was just how it was.
Was there ever a team that you were on and your contract is up and you talk to your manager, your family, like, we need to get the hell out of Dodge no matter what it is?
Yeah, there's situations like that you go through. I mean, the year I played with the Bengals was not my best year. I went there with high hopes, ended up trying to get out of there as fast as I could. I spent 1 year there, and there were a lot of frustrating times for me in Cincinnati, but you move on and you put it past behind you, and hopefully that you can go on to do better things.
I know you shared your Miami Dolphin experience with us, but was there ever a team that you're like, man, I really want to stay here, and it just didn't work out? They went in a different direction, or maybe you decided later on that maybe this other team's a better fit.
Yeah, I mean, there were several teams. I would love to say a lot of places. When I was in Washington, I loved Washington. I loved it to never have to move my family and play with one team. But as you see now, I mean, with free agency, guys move all the time. it's rare that even really, really, really top tier players don't move. I mean, look at Tom Brady. Who would have thought he would have left New England and went to Tampa? And so I guess if you play long enough, you're going to go around and see several teams in your career. But a lot of the teams I wanted to stay, and sometimes it was just my contract was up. Sometimes the coaches said, "All right, we're going to move on," and so you just have to deal with those things and move on, and never really let it get you down.
Okay, so pro athletes, entertainers, I used to do stand up comedy. It's all about feeling wanted, feeling desired. How much mental toughness do you have to have when you know you're a damn good player and a coach says to you, we're going in a different direction? How can you not take that personally? I mean, some people use it as motivation and they go on to another team. They have phenomenal careers. But how much of that does that break your confidence?
Well, when you're a professional, it's like anything else in life. The bosses, the owners can do whatever they want. It's a business. So sometimes when you feel ingrained with the team and you're doing things well, and then all of a sudden it comes out of nowhere, it's just a business to them. You know what I mean? They're trying to save $1 million on the cap, or you don't want to restructure your contract or whatever it is. You have to understand it's a business. I look at Matt Ryan in Atlanta. You know, they
Yeah.
want to go after Deshaun Watson. They put all these feelers out, and there's Matt Ryan saying, okay, what else? You know, I've been here forever. So I feel like Matt Ryan, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him if he goes to another team or if he just sucks it up and stays in the place where he is and then where he's raised his family and all those types of things. So it's really interesting to see like somebody like Deshaun Watson comes out and then there's all the speculation of where he's going to go, and these teams are courting him. And then you have the quarterbacks that are there, like a Baker Mayfield, Matt Ryan, Sam Darnold in Carolina. You know, it's like, where am I? You know, did the team talk to them first? I doubt it. I doubt they called the guy in and said, "Hey, look, we're looking for your replacement. We may or may not get him." They just go and do it, and you have to deal with it, the repercussions at the end.
Yeah, and that's why I say players make I open up about Aaron Rodgers, make as much money as you can, like cuz these owners will get rid of you at the heartbeat, and that goes to my next question. I say this all the time. I don't want my presidency and I don't want my uh professional teams to leak. Okay? It's a sign of weak leadership when there's leaks constantly. So, we just heard this week Chris Mortensen reported that the Browns wanted an adult in the room, and that's not Baker Mayfield. They go out and get Deshaun Watson. Now, how does that affect? I mean, when you see professional sports teams leaking like that, they want it leaked, right? They want people to know. The Jets and Mets are notorious for this, and the Knicks. They'll put out a trade rumor out there because they're so weak of an organization and their leadership is so weak. They want to see what the fans say first, so they want to get some sort of approval. But when you heard that story about, hey, they want an adult in the room, Cleveland, you can't let that leak because worst case scenario, if Baker comes back or whatever, what does that say about him? Like, what does it say as an organization when it's leaked out now that your quarterback is not an adult?
Well, I think that's the problem is that coaches, GMs, owners, they talk behind closed doors and then they say, okay, we're going to leak things. So it puts players in bad positions. And obviously they have the control and the power because they're the ones that are hiring and firing players. But, as far as control, like what happened to Baker is really, it's tough to look at because he gave him a big part of his career. You know, he was played injured, did all these things for them. Yeah, they're going to move on. There's always somebody bigger and better, but there are adult ways to handle it, right?
Yeah.
And I think Baker was a guy, they used to tell me that, sometimes you just got to grow up. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing these things on the field. I'm having fun in the locker room with the guys because we're here for 10 to 12 hours a day. And, we're a family and I was a jokester. So some of those things coaches view the wrong way. And I think that Baker seems like a guy that goes out there and gives it his all, and that's really all you can ask for.
Yeah, I mean, I would not want. I mean, I look at what Joe Burrow has done, Justin Herbert has done, Patrick Mahomes. Baker's not on that level, but he did get them to a playoffs. He did play hurt. I would not want him as my franchise quarterback, but if he was my franchise quarterback, I say this all the time. When you leak stories like that, it lessens someone's trade value because now teams know, hey, they're looking to shop him. We can probably take advantage of this. All right. Speaking of quarterbacks, um, I don't know how you feel about this Mitchell Trubisky going to the Steelers, but he is 29 and 21 as a starter. I may be crazy here, but I think he could have success because you look at the Steelers, they have a good defense, they have good wide receivers, they have a young, talented running back. All they need to do is improve their offensive line. When you heard this, what was your first reaction?
I did not think it was a bad pick because I never thought the Steelers were going to go out and get a top guy like a Deshaun Watson and pay him, guarantee him $240 million. That's not the Steelers. They're going to bring a guy in. They're probably going to, look at trying to see which one of those three could play for them this year, whether it's Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins or Mitch Trubisky. But I think Mitch, when he was in Chicago, I don't think he had top tier coaching. I think he was behind the eight ball a little bit. And then he went to Buffalo and he kind of got understood what good coaching is and sat behind a guy like Josh Allen, where Josh Allen wasn't perfect, but he was a big guy, could run. And I think Mitchell learned a lot about how to play the game a little bit in the NFL from just being in Buffalo. So I think the Steelers probably did their due diligence and said, yeah, let's see what this guy can do. And if he works out for us, because like you said, they got a good running back. They're going to have good receivers, and they got an incredible defense that they're just building on right now. So if Mitchell can just be smart, not turn over the football, that's all the Steelers really ever want.
Now, we talked about quarterbacks like yourself going to different teams. All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot here. You look at the AFC West. If you're taking one quarterback out of that division next year to have the best season, who are you taking? Now, you have Mahomes, you have Russell Wilson, you have Justin Herbert, and I think Derek Carr is so underrated. He now has Hunter Renfrow and Devontae Adams. What quarterback would you pick?
That's really tough because obviously we've seen what Mahomes can do. We've seen what Justin Herbert can do. Russell Wilson, I probably wouldn't take him just because he's in a new system and he's going to be with a bunch of new guys. He could have a breakout year, but I'm not sure he's as comfortable as the other guys. Like you said, Derek Carr, I think can have a great year. They just added a piece that every quarterback would want. Right? If you're a quarterback in the NFL, that's the guy you want running routes for you.
Exactly.
And they got some incredible athletes on that team. And with Josh McDaniels, hopefully he has a really good go around this second time as a head coach. He knows how to get guys open. I mean, he's worked with the greatest quarterback ever. And so, it's going to be interesting to see. If I had to pick one, it's just so hard to go against any of them. But my favorite absolutely in the AFC West is Justin Herbert. I love how he throws. I love how he plays the game. He's a big kid. He can run as well. So I'd pick Justin Herbert.
And it's so funny because the Chiefs have been to three straight AFC championship games and no one's talking about them. Now, Gus, you said earlier that is your wife's Zen room. And look, you just calmed Pam down. She was all upset about Pittsburgh, and now she believes that Mitchell Trubisky can actually make this team work.
Oh yeah, I think he can move. They haven't had that. Big Ben back in the day was a really amazing quarterback to watch play. He could hold the ball. He could run around. As he got older, he couldn't do those things. He wasn't the same guy, and we all know that. Being in Pittsburgh, since I live in Pittsburgh, I've watched it my whole career. And then I think Mitchell's a guy that can come in, make the throws that they need him to make, but also pick up first downs with his feet. I think as long as they approach him well enough as far as coaching and they do the right things with him and teach him what they want him to know, he's going to be a good fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
My friend Bill just texted me, Gus, and this is not a question we had planned, but when you see someone like a Deshaun Watson making all that money or an Aaron Rodgers, uh, I guess the biggest superstar you ever played with, the most talented to me, is the best running back ever, Barry Sanders, right? I mean, the guy was just phenomenal on Detroit, and you were
Well,
there.
actually, I never got to play
Right,
with
you were
him.
there in the
He
aftermath.
retired that year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying to you is, in the locker room, when a superstar leaves, like a Devontae Adams, what does that do? I mean, you talked about Barry Sanders leaving. But what does that do? I mean, because you're all human beings, and you know that Devontae Adams, like I said, 238 catches over the past 2 years. Barry Sanders retires. Is it like a kick in the stomach? Like, damn, we got a lot of making up to do now.
Well, I think it's more of a kick in the stomach to the coaches, right?
Right.
Because with Barry Sanders, we the whole offseason, we didn't know he was going to retire until right before uh, training camp. And so the whole offseason was predicated on what Barry liked and what he wanted, right? They wanted to put the offense in that he felt suited him. And so we did that all offseason. All of a sudden in training camp, boom, he's not there. And then we had to switch gears. And then it becomes a kick to the guys because now it's like, okay, where our main horse is not here, then we got to find out who else is going to pick up the slack. So I think when you lose a Devontae Adams, it's really hard for the coaching staff because, like you said, they're going to have Aaron Rodgers. Who else is going to run routes like he did? Like
Mhm.
we saw him get open so many times, even in double coverage, and the guy was amazing. So to try and have a rookie come in and be like a Devontae Adams, I think it's going to be hard to call plays around that. And I don't think we're going to see, even though they paid Aaron Rodgers, I think they changed the whole landscape. Obviously, with Deshaun Watson, where it's a guaranteed full contract. Now that's going to change. That's what players have always wanted in the NFL, and we've never been able to get that. And now there's a team that finally did it. So I'm assuming the other 31 owners aren't real happy with the owner of the Browns.
Now, when a player goes out and they sign a huge contract, do you ever say to yourself, "Man, like, do you? I mean, you guys, athletes are smart. They know what goes on. They all want everyone to make the most money they can. But do you ever say, "Damn, we're in bad shape here because this guy's making all this money. We can't sign other players."
Oh, nah, yeah. Even though when your top guys get paid, I mean, like if Aaron Rodgers is making 45 million a year, there's still 150 million left. So there's ways to get around it to stretch guys' contracts out to give them a signing bonus up front. I mean, these teams and the people they have working for them, all these math guys, I mean, they do such a good job of
Yeah.
being under the salary cap and still paying and getting the guys they want. So if you ever hear a team bad mouth, poor mouthing, like, oh, we can't afford it, that's just a complete BS.
I mean, you look at the Rams, they just signed Robinson. The Rams continue to sign superstars. Do you think this may be a trend? Because we know a few years ago, the Wildcat was successful down in Miami. Everyone tried to do it. Then the hurry up offense. I'm surprised it took so long because the Buffalo Bills went to 4 Super Bowls with that kind of no huddle offense. Do you think we're going to see a trend where teams are like, you know what? Forget about draft picks. Give me a proven commodity.
Well, I mean, I think that's been around for a long time. Teams are going to do that. They're going to go out and get guys. They just traded Robert Woods. They brought Allen Robinson in. I don't know if OBJ is going to be healthy next year. Who knows with his knee and what happened to him? But the Rams said we want to give our team and our coaches every opportunity, and they felt their needs weren't a lot of different places. So they got a quarterback, which they felt like they really needed. They had Aaron Donald, right? So they built some defense around him. And, they went out and did it, I think, the right way. Now you see the rest of the AFC. Well, that the NFC West they're probably still going to be the team to beat. But San Francisco has been adding guys like that. You see the AFC West, they're adding top tier guys all around because they know they're playing against the best quarterbacks. So they're all bringing in the top defensive players, right? And they're signing these guys. So the AFC West is going to be absolutely crazy this year. But, as far as what the trend is going to be, I'm not sure. We've seen a lot of money floating around. I think free agency has changed the whole landscape of the league. A kid that I coached in high school, Foye, who played for Atlanta, he just signed a 3-year deal with Jacksonville. I thought he was going to go back to Atlanta because he led the league in tackles last year, and they let him go because Jaguars stepped up, gave him a better contract, didn't fool around with him. And it's like you said that he felt, look, they must not want me as much as I think they do.
So
So he just left and went to Jacksonville.
you bring up someone you coach. I brought up earlier on the show. I used to be a college basketball coach, and I was the commissioner of Seton Hall basketball camp. And Shaheen Holloway was coaching kids, and he was so cocky and so passionate, where the other players on his team really didn't care. I mean, the other coaches, because what happens is when you coach college basketball and you run these clinics, the players get paid to work those basketball camps. So he was going up against everyone on his team, and he was the coach, and The kids loved him. He was there bright and early, where everyone come in hungover. And when he won the champs, he's like, Monte, I told you I'm going to be. I didn't know he was going to be a coach. He's doing great things at St. Peter's. Did you know this person that you coached in high school was, wow, this kid is special and he may have a chance?
Oh yeah, he and Ezekiel Elliott. I coached those two guys in high school, and they both had supreme talent in high school. Zeke went a different direction than Foye did. Zeke went to Ohio State, won a national championship, went on to be great, go to the Cowboys. Foye went to Yale as a corner and a
Yeah.
receiver, ended up playing strong safety, never played middle linebacker until he got to the pros, and learned how to play linebacker when he was at the Falcons for 4 years. And last year, he finally started clicking for me. He led the league in tackles. So this guy has amazing ability. He's super smart. He understands the game, and he just consumes film like no one else. So I asked him, I said, you were this rookie and you were coming in to the Falcons and you had to learn from all these older linebackers. And he said, yeah, I just tried to soak it all up. The coaches were great. They taught me everything. I said, now you're the veteran, right? You got to do the stuff to stay at the top and then also help the younger guys. He goes, yeah, and I look forward to that. I said, yeah, I'm excited to watch you because that's what it takes to be a great player in this league.
Now, we talked about the defenses gearing up to try to stop a Patrick Mahomes, try to stop Derek Carr. Let's talk about the Chargers. They were ranked 32nd on third down conversion. They were one of the worst defensive teams in the league. You now have Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James, who I love, and now J.C. Jackson, Asante Samuels. How are the Chargers not the favorite? I know Kansas City always goes to the AFC Championship, but I look at this Charger team offensively and defensively. They kind of remind me of the Browns going into last year or the Tampa Bay Bucks 2 years ago. They are super talented on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and I think that if you look at the formula, it's probably what the Rams were doing, right? So now the Chargers are saying, okay, we got to bring the guys in because we did have one of the worst defenses in certain situations, and you just can't have that. If you want to be a top team and go to the Super Bowl, your defense has to play lights out in every situation. You have to give your pass rushers opportunities to get to the quarterback, and with the guys they added, I feel like they can do that. And when you got a kid and an offense like the Chargers have, I mean, if he can put up 30 points a game, which they usually do, your defense job should be pretty easy. But last year we saw that teams were still scoring on them, and that's the way you're going to win games. They say defense wins football games, but it's because the offense can score points.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
If every game is 15-15, the offense is probably pretty poor. But we see the Chargers offense is pretty good, but their defense weren't able to keep up. So I think they're filling those parts in.
I wrote an article a few months ago about the national about people. Oh, defense wins championships. The average score of the winning team of the college football national championship over the last 10 years was like 36. The average NFL score, I think, was like 27 in the Super Bowl. So you have to be good situationally, get a defensive back who could intercept the ball or lock down a player for a couple possessions. You need a pass rush. But this mindset that defense wins championships, it's not like that anymore. The Bengals, I think, were 17th, and I think the Rams were 16th on the year in defense. It's all about scoring.
Yeah, it's all about scoring and getting your guys in the right position. I feel bad for Joe Burrow because, I don't know if they did what they needed to do to protect him.
Right.
I mean, the guy got sacked 9 times one game and still won.
Exactly.
What happens if he doesn't get sacked at all? Well, how good is he? So I think that they'll probably take a look at that. But those are things that it's all offense. Now, the way the rules are set up, pass interference. I mean, if you got a one-on-one and you got a good offensive player out there, more times than not, it's a pass interference and just a incomplete pass. And, that changes the whole game right there. So I think it's more offense driven. But as we saw, good defensive players can still make plays. But can they hold? The thing about defenses now, can they hold the team when they need to? Not necessarily the whole game, but when they have to, right? When they're going for it on 4th and 5, can the Raiders stop? That game against the Raiders and the Chargers was amazing.
Well, you saw the last 2 possessions of the game in the Super Bowl. Von Miller and Aaron Donald make 2 big plays to on the third down and the 4th down. So yeah, you need situationally to be good in that. I want to talk a little bit about when you retired. We just saw Tom Brady take a couple months off and say, "Hey, I'm coming back." When you retired, did you know your career was over, or were you like, "Hey, man, it's just the team doesn't want me anymore"?
Well, I was in Minnesota. I had a 2-year deal, and with Coach Childress and Daryl Bevell there, I knew they loved Brett Favre. I mean, they were always they were friends with Favre. He was at the Jets at the time, and there was a big talk about him coming to the Vikings, and I knew that. And actually, you talk about coaches talking to you. Coach Childress was very open with me and said, "Hey, we're looking at bringing Brett in. We're probably gonna release you if we can get him." And I'm like, "Well, just keep two quarterbacks. We'll both be 40. Like, who cares? Like." You know what I mean?
Right.
So that didn't work out. So then I go back to St. Louis where my family was living. And I actually went and tried to go back to the Rams, right? Because I said, hey, if I can still do this, what's the harm? What else am I going to do, right? I've been doing this for so long. And then I failed my physical, and that kind of told me right there, you're 39. You know what I mean? Like, you failed your physical, your knees aren't good enough anymore, and you kind of, it's time. So you kind of stop, and I was lucky enough to play as long as I did, so I felt like I accomplished a lot. So it wasn't hard for me to leave the game. But once it's over, it's over. Like, not many people, because Tom Brady is who he is. Not many guys can say, "Hey, I'm going to retire," and then they just let you come back. I mean, that's like a different way to look at it.
Now, when you retired, what's the biggest change from the day to day? A lot of players, as soon as they retire, they gain a lot of weight because they don't worry about working out as much or running as much. They have trouble, let's be honest, the family gets used to you not being there when you're traveling. I mean, the NFL is not as bad as the NBA or Major League Baseball, but what was the biggest change to so-called civilian life after you left playing?
Well, I was always very close with my family because I knew that once you're done, I've seen a lot of guys go through it. If you haven't had that connection with your family, like you're saying, you're not going to be able to just pick it up and move right in and act like that you've been there always. I mean, it's really tough for some guys because they've had two families, right? They've had this football family for their whole career. And then a lot of times while they're playing, they started this new family, but football was always kind of first to them. So there's a mix and they're torn. Where for me, I had kids when I was 25, and my wife and I have been together for now 31 years. So it was easier. Like, that was the most important thing. Even playing for 7 teams, they always went with me. We were always together. So that was easy for me. Um, the part for me, like, when I got done playing, I had so many aches and pains that I just didn't lift. I probably should have stayed in shape more. And it is like, you get done playing and you think you can eat the same, do all the things the same that you've been doing since you've been running and lifting every day. You don't, and then you gain some weight and you try to get it back off as you get older because all the aches and pains that you do have come back. And for me, turning 50, I noticed things starting to break down a little more as far as old injuries. So I'm just trying to maintain that and keep doing what I'm doing so that I can and feel better, that I can still be here for my kids. But the hardest part, I think, really is just what you're used to isn't there anymore, right? I was used to going in and working out, going in, getting the training staff going in, and there were people that took care of you right and left, and you had a job, you played the game that you loved, and then all of a sudden it's over. You don't get to do that stuff anymore. So you are at home and you're trying to figure out your next step. And I always tell guys, like I told Foye, if you can while you're playing, really try to look at what you want to do after. And there's nothing wrong with that. For me, I didn't. I was about my family and
Right.
football, and which is fine. But when you're done, you're done. And so you have to look what's going to keep you busy. That is next. I mean, I was lucky. I got to play till I was, almost 40. Some guys only play 3 or 4 years. And so
Right.
now they have this whole huge stretch of life that they have to figure out what they're doing next, and they haven't a clue. And so it's tough, and that's probably the hardest part, is trying to figure out what's next down the road for you.
The biggest thing for me when I coached college and then I went to AAU and I won a championship in AAU and I stopped coaching. But the hardest thing for me, I don't know how you feel about this because I know the games are so important because that's when the fans are there, that's when there's cheering, and it's such a high. But the hardest thing for me walking away, because I love the practices, because my practices were so hard. I run a basketball clinic now, I volunteer, and the kids who come after just 2 months, you see them improving. And to me, that was the biggest thing. Like you show them a drill and then they do it in a game. That to me, or you see them improve in practice. Also the locker room, like when I coach college basketball, I was very close to the other coaches. You know everything about them. You know their likes, their dislikes. You're on the road. Talk about, what makes up for the camaraderie in the locker room when you don't have that anymore.
Not much, for me, I played on 7 teams, and then I lived somewhere where I didn't play, right? I didn't play in Pittsburgh. I grew up here, but I didn't play here. So to me, it's like all the guys I knew, none of them live here, none of them are around here. And they were all instant friendships, and you got to know them, you hung out with them. Not always the same kind of what you like to do outside of the locker room, but they were guys that you like to be around and hang out with. And all of a sudden, all those friends that you had over the years, they're all gone. They're all raising kids. They're all doing different things. And it's really tough to stay in touch with all of them. And so that's one of the hardest things that I do miss is the locker room and having fun with the guys and going out and working hard with the guys and playing in games and just enjoying all those emotions and feelings and the day in and day out. And that's a whole family that all of a sudden you're divorced from, you're gone.
It's funny because Kurt Warner was just talking about his reunion that they had with the Rams championship team. And he said, we were so close. And he's like, I haven't seen or spoken to these guys in years because, your other life takes over. He's like, they have lives. They're raised. I have my life. And you want to keep in touch with them. It's just they're all over the country now.
Yeah, it's really tough. Everybody's everywhere. You try to stay in touch, and you tell yourself, I'm going to make some calls. I'm going to call these guys, check in, see how they're doing. But everybody's busy, and you get moving on. You have kids, you run around. If it depends, like my kids are out of college now, but I'm still doing stuff for them all the time. A lot of guys are, their kids are younger. They're running after them in soccer games, football, basketball, whatever, taking them to school. And it never stops when you have kids. So, the guys that you were friends with before, those kind of things go on the back burner. And then over time, it just gets lost. And it's really, sometimes it's when you can go to a reunion, we can go to an alumni event or go to a golf tournament. A lot of guys are there, it's just kind of nice to be around guys that remember, it brings you back to that locker room feeling.
Well, Gus, we got a couple more minutes with you, then we'll let you go. We'll bring on George Lopez. George, nice to see you as always. You have 3 kids. They're constantly in A. It's not like when I first started coaching, there were high school basketball games on Tuesday and Friday. By the time one of the reasons why I left coaching is every night I was driving up and down New Jersey, Pennsylvania, recruiting. George, how hard is it to have 3 kids and separate your time to go to all their games?
It's insane. I put this yesterday. My daughter had a basketball game at 1:00 in one city. My 13-year-old son had a baseball game in a different city at 1:30. So we have to split. During the week, it's even crazier because my son, who's a sophomore in high school, he plays on Tuesday. My other son will have a game on Tuesday, and my daughter has basketball practice on Tuesday. So we're just, okay, our son's high school game, we got to leave. I'll take my son to baseball practice or a game. My wife will take my daughter to a practice or a game, and we got to go back and pick up our son. And so it's just nonstop. But like us, it's actually fun. I enjoy it. I get to see, my kids. I'm done coaching, so I get to be dad and just sit back and enjoy watching them play.
And also, your son is being invited to all sorts of baseball clinics in the summer. Gus, one question I never asked you, and people were emailing me this week. Bad job on my part. As a high school football player, how was it your recruiting process? Why did you end up at the college you went to? How did it go? I know it's different now than it was back then, but did you feel I'm going to a place where I feel most wanted, or why did you make the decision to go to the college that you went to?
Well, to get to that, but to go back to the recruiting process, you got to remember it was either a phone call
or mail
to your house, right? Yeah. Or they would call the coach
Yeah.
and then you would get a number and you'd call them back when you had an opportunity. There was no cell phones. There was none of that stuff. And then now there's like Huddle. There's all this digital ways to put film up for coaches to see it. And I remember putting like grainy film together on VHS tapes and sending it out, right? That's what we did. And it was crazy. So the reason I went to Tulsa, I had an opportunity to go to Temple, to Louisville, to Kansas State, a bunch of other schools. And Tulsa, just Coach Rader was our head coach. He came to Pittsburgh several times to visit me, and that meant the world to me. Like Howard Schnellenberger was a coach at Louisville, great coach, a lot of pomp and circumstance with him. But for me, it was like he never even called me. He never even come. He was just like, "I'm Howard. You got to come here." And I'm like, "No, that's not who I am. I grew up in a small town." And Coach Rader knew that, and so he came from Tulsa twice, visited my house. Came to a basketball game. And so that for me was kind of it and why I like to go then. Plus, he was a former pro quarterback. He played for the Giants for a couple of years, and they threw the ball a ton at Tulsa. So going from the wing tee offense to being able to throw the ball 40 times a game, yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Gus, I pulled this up off the internet here. You look like a man amongst boys there.
Yeah, that's the bootleg. I forget what that play was called in high school, but that's the picture. I was the tallest kid on our team, but look at those shoulder pads. That's crazy. But the Fort City Sabres there, it was a lot of fun. Friday nights were incredible. We go out, we weren't throwing the ball. I probably threw it 45 times my whole career.
That's
in
insane.
High school.
Oh, wow.
But I never played quarterback till I was a junior. Right. So, just things happen and times have changed, but the recruiting process is still, once you meet a coach, they got to get to know you, and you got to be humble, and you got to say yes sir, no sir. And I think coaches love that stuff, and they're recruiting not just what you do on the field, but they're bringing somebody in that hopefully represents their team and their university.
I was
going to say, Monte, one thing, if you don't mind, Monte, one thing, we've talked with, scouts and things like that. We've had meetings with my son's travel team, and they tell us they're not just recruiting players, they're recruiting parents. They want to see what kind of parents that particular player has. And if they're negative on the field, because that's going to reflect on the player, and they can lose out on a scholarship offer possibly.
Well, yeah, I think that a lot of times when parents are too involved, right? The coaches are saying, I've had roommates that left when they were freshmen because they missed home, right? They didn't understand, like, yeah, this is your next step in life and you're going to grow up and it may be hard, but kids go through that stuff. Maybe they were the big man on campus, right? And then all of a sudden they got to go and they're back to being a freshman again. And, nobody knows their name. And so those kind of things are tough. And so when coaches look at how parents develop kids, that's a huge step for coaches. Like, if a kid is undeveloped by their parents and just kind of let them do anything they want, that coach is saying, okay, now we got to that's a whole nother step that we have to deal with. So if kids mature, if they meet the parents seem mature, I think that's a step in the right direction for a lot of coaches. But and as you know, it's hard for some parents. I was that guy too. I wanted my kids to be the best, and sometimes it's hard to zip your lips.
That is true. I have to catch myself a few times at games. Like, I don't want my son acting a certain way. I got to set an example. So there's a few times, and it's part of sports. You understand, you're going to be upset with a call or a non-call. It's what makes sports fun is the human error. And I try to teach my kids, you got to accept it, learn from it. So you try to set that example.
It's hard for parents, right? Because human error does happen on the field, but it shouldn't happen in the stands, right? That's
Agreed.
Where the problem comes in.
Great point. We had my 13-year-old son, his very first game, one of the parents actually threatened the umpire. And the coach from the other team goes, no one here is getting a D1 scholarship today. They're kids. Yeah. Allow them to enjoy it. And I don't even know who the dad is. I just knew I need to stay away from him because I'm going to tell him something the way he's getting on the ump and how he was getting on his kid. I go, that's not how you get on your kid. It really rubbed me the wrong way. And I don't even know who the guy is. And he's a parent on my son's team.
I coached.
Sometimes it's hard to take a look at yourself.
My last year coaching AAU, I had 10 players. I played all 10 players. There was one kid who everyone was they were juniors. Everyone was under 6'3". We won 5 out of 6 tournaments. I had a parent come up and tell me my kid's not playing enough. I said, "Your kid didn't make his high school basketball team. He's playing 14, 15 minutes a game. He's loving it. We're winning." I think at the time we were like 21-2. I said, "If we were 2-21, you'd have an argument." I said, "Your son didn't make his high school basketball team. He's on my team. I love the kid." I was like, "And he's playing." Sometimes parents are so delusional, they have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story, Monty. When I coached in high school, I made the parents. I sat them in the stands before the season started, and I said, "Look, this is about me and your kids, right?" And they were worried about, am I doing the right things for, which I get, I understand, but I said, this is your kids trying to be better people, growing up to become adults and all that. And I said, problems are going to be handled between your kids and I. And then if that can't be resolved, then we'll bring you in. And I actually made them sign a piece of paper that said that they could not call me, they could not approach me until
Good for you.
24 hours after the game. And it worked out so well. The parents just had faith in me, and the kids I had an open door. They'd come talk to me. And if they felt like they were being wrong, then they could bring their parents in after that. But they had to take the first step, because I thought that taught them so much in life.
One of the things I always try to do as a coach is not just prepare these kids for a basketball game, but ups and downs in life. Like, my door was always open. Off outside of practice, outside of game, if they needed me, I was their friend. But during practice, I used to say practice is hell, games are easy, and that's why we went after it. But some of these parents you see on social media, if you scroll down, fighting. George, you said threatening the umpire. Come on, man. Kids don't want to see their parents getting into fights in the stands. It does damage to them when they see that.
Oh, agreed.
It's so different now too, is that parents are at practices. I don't remember my dad and mom ever being at one of my practices.
Right.
If they did, they showed up right when it was over and they picked me up. Right now, parents are at practices yelling at coaches and doing all that. So I've seen it all. It's insane.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who started a youth football program here in LA, and when he would start his season, first thing he would tell the parents: cheer for your kids, let myself and my coaches coach. Let us do our job. And one of my son's travel coach, one of his travel teams, he had parents sign a code of conduct for the parents. Yeah. Like, this is things that the way I want you to act, or the way what we expect from you as parents. But what I loved about him, and I still love about him, he would do grade checks. He goes, you need to maintain at least a 3.0. And this, 15, 16-year-old kids, he goes, I'm trying to prepare you not just for baseball, to get you to the next level, to get you ready for college. He wants them to excel off the field. And that's what I loved about him. And he goes, if you don't have the grades, I'm going to put you on academic probation. You can't even practice with your team until you get your grades to a level where we want them.
No, that's great. That's how it should be. And, both of you guys said something, Gus on a previous show, and George, you said this to me. You said one of the best things you did as a parent and for your kids is you stopped being their coach. You said, now I'm just going to be your fan. Was that hard to do, Gus? Because you played and you know what it takes to be an NFL player. Was it hard for you to walk away from that?
It was, because I always said I never wanted to be my dad when I coached, but then I kind of turned into him. It's kind of funny. But and then I was coaching my son Gunner. He wanted to play quarterback, and I got on him one game about not doing the right thing. We went over, we talked about it, and I kind of was in the locker room in his face a little bit, and then I saw his face, and I stepped back and saw how sad he was. And my wife kind of wanted to say something, but she never really stepped in, and she let me figure it out. And I figured it out at that point. I said, buddy, I'm really sorry. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm not going to coach you anymore. If you want to be quarterback, fine. But you want to go play receiver, whatever it is. But I had to learn, like, I figured if I did that, I was going to lose him. And he wouldn't want to be with me or around me. I'd rather have him as my son my whole life, and then some kid I coached in 9th grade.
No, that's a great point, and good for you for realizing it, right? Because a lot of former players, coaches, they don't realize that, and they're people. I know them personally. The Hurleys, okay, Bobby Hurley Jr. and Danny Hurley despised their father after they stopped playing because of how mentally abusive he was.
Yeah, it is hard. I'll give you an example. My dad was playing senior little league in baseball, and I was pitching. I walked the first batter, Him and my grandfather stood up in the dugout, were yelling. I walked the second batter. They took a step out of the dugout. I walked the third batter. They were on the third base line yelling at me. Threw a ball the next pitch, and it just was messing with me. I couldn't throw a strike at that point. Threw a ball the next pitch, and they're screaming. I literally put my glove down on top of the mound and walked home. And my dad didn't talk to me for 2 weeks just because I couldn't take it anymore.
Right.
You
No,
know? And
parents don't realize the pressure that they put on kids is unbearable. You walked home. You walked off the mound like
yeah,
the Bad News Bears, just like when
I
they
did.
walk off the mound.
Yeah, and screaming at me through the fence. And, he was one of 15 kids. He was the youngest boy. So, he was a mill guy. He grew up differently. But at that point, it took us a while to get over that. But I just couldn't take it anymore because it was my grandfather and him both at it. Like, I was like, okay, this is getting a lot. And then I found all that stuff comes back to you when you're coaching and you say, I don't want to be like that. And then you find yourself doing some of those things and you say, okay, wait, I got to change.
Yeah, that happened to me early on coaching my oldest son. I caught myself really getting on him. And I actually sat and talked with him after a practice and I asked him, does it bother you? He goes, sometimes it does. I'm like, okay, I need to take a step back and remember he's a kid. And I'm trying to teach him how to play this game. And, thankfully, the same thing you did, Gus, and when you saw your son's face, I saw him. So I'm like, okay, now I was able to change what I was doing. Thankfully, it was at a younger age and I didn't drive him away from the sport that he actually loves playing now. And that's one thing I actually take a little joy out of. Parents would come up to my wife after the season asking if I was going to coach the following year because they wanted their kids to stay with me. And I would never hear this. She would tell me afterwards they want to know because they like the way you are. I would get loud and I would tell the parents, you're going to hear me, but it's never to berate your kid. I want them to hear me on the field while I'm instructing them. So my voice will carry, but it's never going to be in anger. And they liked how I treated their kids. On the field, they were all my kids. And I was going to do what I could, to bring out the best in them, but to teach them the fundamentals, but to enjoy the game.
Yeah, you got to remember your kids' brains are still developing all the way through the age of 16. And, the stuff that they're hearing, they're learning. You want to build them up. You want to give them positive feedback and not negative.
Exactly.
Gus, great stuff as always. How can we follow you, support you, Huddle Up with Gus, your show? Tell the fans how they can support.
Yeah, they can check me out at Huddle Up with Gus or wherever they listen to their favorite podcast. Go to my website, huddleupwithgus.com. Please, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, go and like my show. Give it a good 5-star rating. I would appreciate that. And we've had some great guests on. We got some more coming up. I just had Foyer on. He'll be out Monday. Bryant McKinney's coming to visit with me on Monday. So
Nice.
We're going to have a good show talking some old Vikings stories. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a great show, and it's really about how sports shaped your life. And we're just talking about that. Everybody I've ever talked to has a story like ours, and it's really interesting to hear all of them.
Gus, you prefer doing the live shows or recording a pot? Like, what's your favorite?
I'm not good at live like you are, where you can handle all these things going on at once and switching a camera and putting all the people. I can't do that stuff, so I like recording it and doing it in post.
Right. And do you edit it for the most part, or it is what it is?
We edit some of it, mostly it is what it is. We leave those segments out where we can put ads in and things like that for our sponsors. And anybody wants a sponsor, they can reach out to me. But that's the only place where we really edit things. But as far I tell the guests, like, if you got to get up and go, because like if you got to go to the bathroom or whatever, we can stop and come back and do all that. But for the most part, it's what they say is important, right or wrong.
Gus, we love having you on. The fans love having you on. You are a huge part of my TikTok growing audience. When I post clips, like I said, you're getting 5, 10, 15,000 views, and people remember you from the Washington days. Someone said that they won their fantasy football with you one year. So people on TikTok love when I post your videos. So thank you so much.
Oh yeah, back in the day, fantasy football was not what it is today. So.
Yeah, I know. It was a lot. A lot of things were different back in the day.
Yeah,
Not saying they were better, just saying they were a lot different. All right, Gus.
All right, thanks,
we'll have
fellas.
you on down the road.
Gus.
Always appreciate the time.
See you. Take care.
Thanks so much. Gus Frerotte, ladies and gentlemen, always does a tremendous job. What I love about Gus is he's so real, right, George? I mean,
Yeah.
he opens up to me. He tells us, and if you're not watching Huddle Up with Gus, he has that same. He's a little more animated on his show. Obviously, you're more animated when you're the host as a guest, but he's very funny. The stories and he's so real. Like, just shares everything.
I was looking at that room. I was drawn to that picture right over his right shoulder
Yeah,
of that tree. It
yeah,
reminded me of something from the Lord of the Rings. I don't know why. I was like that.
yeah.
I just kept looking at that in the crescent moon.
Normally, he's in his little
Yeah.
man cave where he has the basketball. All right, George. I'm in a good mood, but now I'm going to get annoyed because the whole LA thing is just pissing me off. The rich get richer. How the hell can the Rams afford to get a legitimate number one wide receiver in Allen Robinson? I don't get it.
Well, the Rams are very good at manipulating the salary cap. And
Yeah, it's called
that's
cheating.
it's not cheating. They're playing within the rules. They know how to manipulate it. They're going to turn a lot of the money to signing bonuses, and they have to deal with it at the back end of the contract, and they'll
Yeah, but George,
manipulate
he's
it
getting
then.
$46 million. How do the Rams have $46 million?
Well, you got to figure, Whitworth retired. That took 16 million off the cap. They restructured some contracts, and they were able to bring cap space down. They released Johnny Hecker. So some players have left. They took the cap hit off, and that's how they were able to do it. And the crazy thing is, they still have money to bring back OBJ.
Now, I was going to say that first of all, if they get OBJ, can't you use that money for other pieces? I know offense sells, but you have Cooper Cup, you have Robinson, you have Jefferson,
Jefferson.
right? You have Higbee. I mean, you have two running backs. Maybe they don't need OBJ. They have enough.
Well, this is LA. Enough is never enough.
But George, can't you allocate that money for something you may need a little bit more of?
Oh, I agree. You could allocate that money for something you need more, but OBJ, he showed what he can do in that system at the end of the year, and it sucks that he had to blow up that ACL during the Super
I
Bowl.
think they would have won by 14 points if he was
He
healthy.
was going to have a hell of a game.
Yep.
He wasn't going to break Jerry Rice's record for receiving yards, but he was going to go for at least 170 in that game. He was they weren't going to stop him. He was in a zone, and it's unfortunate, that it happened. I hope he comes back better, even if it's not with the Rams.
I think they're going to sign him. All indication is he wants to stay there. He'll take a little bit less.
Well, after Robinson signed, he put something out on Twitter, and he's got a chip on his shoulder. So I don't know if it was directed at the Rams or he's just sending out a message that I'm coming in motivated, because he might have seen this as a slap in the face, like, hey, they're going to replace me. But I do hope they bring him back.
Listen, it would have been a no-brainer if he didn't get injured. But you bring in Allen Robinson. I know my friend Andrea's miserable because the Bears got rid of Khalil Mack, arguably their leader in the defense. They get rid of their best wide receiver. But I'm not saying a healthy OBJ is not as good, but Allen Robinson is an absolute stud.
Oh, agreed. And I hope Robinson understands that he's not probably going to get the numbers that he had in Chicago, because he's going to be one of many in the cog. So he's going to put up good numbers, but everyone knows right now everything's going to go through Cooper Kupp, and then it's going to trickle down from there. So he's going to have to play the role like LBJ did, Robert Woods did, and I hate the fact that they traded him. I understand the business side of it, but I'm a huge Robert Woods fan, and what he meant for the Rams, and being from Southern California, it was hard to see it done, but I knew someone was gone. I just wasn't expecting Robert Woods. But Greg actually made a good point about that. Van Jefferson's still on a rookie contract.
Yeah.
Robert Woods isn't. So it was the business side of it. So it made sense for the Rams
to make that move. Van Jefferson has a ton of upside, George.
Oh, he does. A lot of upside. So I'm happy with him. He's going to be their deep threat. So, the offense should be exciting.
Yeah. And I look at this team right now and I say, okay, San Francisco, they're kind of standing pat. You look at the rest of the NFC, the Packers are not going to be as good. The Bears, Seattle, rebuilding. Okay. Atlanta, New Orleans, not going to be that good. Obviously, Tampa, but we saw the Rams beat them. I look at this next year and I say, going in, it's the Rams and it's the Chargers. It could be a LA Super Bowl.
Well, I'm not going that far, and I'm not trying to disrespect the Chargers, because I think they have a real good shot to make a good run next year. Everyone talks about run it back with the Rams, and this happens in every sport. There's a difference between being the hunter and
Yeah.
being the hunted. Now we're going to see with these players, where's the hunger? Is the drive still there? The great ones in all sports: Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, uh,
Tom
Tom.
Brady.
I hate saying his name. Tom
Tom Brady.
Brady. Tom Brady. They've asked him, "You've won 7 Super Bowls. What's your favorite one?" The next one.
Yeah.
There it is. And a lot of players, they win that championship, they back off.
Yeah.
They're not as hungry. Aaron Donald, the day after the victory parade, he was back in the gym working out, getting ready
That's
for next season.
insane. That's
Yeah,
insane. Like, enjoy, you know, I'll never forget Nick Saban wins a national championship. He's walking off and he's writing notes because he didn't like the way they executed the last play. Dude, can you
exactly.
enjoy it for one moment?
No, you enjoy it for a moment, but the great ones, they're already thinking, how do we get it back? They're working, okay, now I got to improve. What can I do to get better? And that's what the great ones do. So now the other ones that aren't considered great, do they have that same hunger, and are they willing to put in the same amount of work to get back there? And that's what we're going to find out with the Rams this year.
Okay, so you win a Super Bowl. Obviously, they add players. They're going to lose some players. What's the biggest need for the Rams this offseason to get back? Listen, they're going to win 11 games just for showing up, but what do they need to improve on to make a back-to-back Super Bowl run?
Well, the two things that pop up to my head real quick is they need to find a replacement for Darius Williams on the left cornerback opposite of Jalen Ramsey. Right now, it's David Long, so I don't know if they're going to stick with him or if they're going
I
to
don't
look.
know if that's
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to continue to look through free agency or maybe someone in the draft, and they have to address Von Miller leaving. I understand why he left. You can't turn down that kind of money, and he's going to a very good team.
but 6
But
years, 120 million. That's insane
it's insane. But
for an aging player.
and I don't fault him on it. But someone brought up a good point. Von Miller played great, with the Rams when he got healthy, and I still think he's going to have a tremendous season with Buffalo. But what helped Von Miller is Aaron Donald. He was able to take things away that free things up for Von Miller on the outside. Does Buffalo have that type of defensive tackle? We'll find out. But I think he's going to improve that defense tremendously. So Buffalo is getting one hell of a player who's hungry. Von Miller
I think
stays hungry.
And I think Von Miller led the last 3 games of the playoffs. He was number one in hits on the quarterback.
Yeah.
So he definitely. So what are they going to do? We know they don't have a ton of draft picks because they made trades. How do they fill their linebacker and defensive back?
Well, right now they have Terrell Lewis and Justin Hollins on their depth chart. So right now Terrell Lewis is a projected starter at Von Miller's spot. And the Rams have a tremendous college scouting department. So they know how to find players that fit what they do in the mid to late rounds. So I expect them to look at a linebacker coming on. And I'm pretty sure Bill and Jeff have got some ideas of who the Rams could pick up in the middle to late rounds. They're tremendous at their scoutings with the college players. I think Terrell Lewis, if he could stay healthy, can play very well opposite Leonard Floyd as an edge rusher.
Are you surprised that they're not more aggressive in trying to fill parts of the defense? Or you're like, you know what? Come draft time, we'll get what we need.
I'm a little surprised, but I also know how Les Snead operates. So what he's doing is pretty much par for the course. So yeah, I would like to see him be a little bit more aggressive, trying to address some things in free agency, but I'm pretty sure they have a very good idea of what they're going to do with the draft.
Does anyone else watching kind of sense the arrogance that George has now that his teams keep winning
No,
championships?
believe me,
He's
this is
always
not
so
arrogant.
humble. Now there's like a cockiness to
No,
him.
this is not arrogance because I've seen it. It is. When was the last time a Super Bowl team repeated as a champ?
Yeah,
We're
no,
talking
that's a fair
the
point. That's a
03,
fair
04
point.
Patriots. So
Right.
I know how hard it is as a fan to see a team get back there and win it. It's hard to get there and win it, but to come back the next year, a lot of things got to fall into place. One, the players have got to keep that same hunger. Two, they got to stay healthy. And that was the difference with Tampa Bay this year. When they
Yeah,
won
they
it
had a
2
lot
years
of
ago, they
ton
were
of
healthy.
injuries.
Ton of
Yeah.
injuries this past season. We could see the same thing happen with the Rams. Players could, like I said, if they don't want to put in the work, their performance on the field is going to suffer. So this isn't arrogance. This is still, I'm happy that they won. I mean, I waited 40 some odd years to see the LA Rams win a Super Bowl. So I'm still on that high, but I know what it takes. I don't know what it takes, but and there's a lot of work to be done to get back there. There's no
All right.
guarantee they'll get back there. Even as you mentioned, Seattle's rebuilding. Green Bay's on a downward trend. I'm not sleeping on New Orleans. I think New Orleans is going to have a good team next year.
Well, their defense won games. I mean, they held Tom Brady to two of his worst games in the last 10 years. So, yeah, I agree with that. But I want to talk about repeating and people staying hungry. Social media, there's so many positives, but there's so many trolls. And I no longer have patience for them. I call them out on their BS. Some guy sitting on his couch is making fun of LeBron James. How is this LeBron James's fault? He's averaging 29 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 19th year, 37 years old. This is Russell Westbrook, who going into Friday night's game where he hits a game-winning three, was shooting 9% from three-point range. This is Anthony Davis, who after he won a championship, came into camp 25 pounds overweight and made out of glass. How the hell is LeBron James taking blame for this?
2 words: LeBron James. Because of who he is, everybody will find fault with the superstar when the teams don't win in any sport. When Shaq got traded after the 03-04 season, everybody was blaming Kobe Bryant. Hell, out here, it's raining. It's Kobe Bryant's fault. It got that bad because he was the face of the franchise now. Any sport, if that team struggles, they're going to look to the superstar. Bottom line. They're going to say he's not helping his team win. He's putting up tremendous numbers, and agreed. At 37 years old, he's doing things that
He may win the scoring title.
Yeah, he may win the scoring title.
And someone said he's going for stats, Skip Bayless. He's shooting 52%. This is not Kobe, who's shooting 41%, or Allen Iverson shooting 43%. LeBron James is beyond efficient.
He's doing what he's doing out of necessity because this team, let's just face it, Andrea's going to love me saying this. This team sucks right now.
Right.
Honestly, I quit watching them. I got so frustrated watching them. It's again, Los Angeles, we expect certain things out of the teams here, and not seeing it, it's just frustrating. And it's just better not to watch it. I'd rather listen to it on the radio because I can easily just, yell at the radio and I won't damage it.
I've watched, I would say 95%. I have the NBA League Pass of the Atlanta Hawks. I've watched maybe 3 Knicks games. I've watched maybe 12 Laker games because they're unwatchable. They're unwatchable. The Los Angeles Lakers are just as bad as they were in the Kobe years after Phil Jackson left.
I'm going to say this: they're as bad as they were when they had Randy Funn as a coach.
Wow!
Right after Pat Riley left.
Wow, that's really bad. Well,
yeah, that's really bad.
Back then, though.
Yeah, it's frustrating this year. I'm honestly hoping they don't get into the play-in. I really don't want them in.
They're going to. They're going to, though.
I would rather they don't, because if they get in, honestly, I hope they lose because they need to tear this team apart and rebuild it. Believe it or not, LA usually said we don't rebuild, we reload. They need to make a lot of changes, and I think the first one they're going to make, bye Frank Vogel.
Yeah,
I think they're gonna move on for him. He did a tremendous job when they won in the bubble, but this comes back to what I said about the Rams. A lot of those players didn't have that hunger to continue to get better.
Once they won Anthony Davis didn't. You win a title and you come to camp 25 pounds overweight. Disgraceful, Anthony Davis. Disgraceful. Okay, George, give us your Final Four in the West and your Final Four in the East. Believe it or not, I think something's going to happen with Kyrie Irving where they're going to do what they did the week of the Super Bowl. They're just going to allow everyone not to get tested. They're going to allow him to play. I like Milwaukee and I like the Nets. I do not like the Miami Heat for one simple reason. They have one closer in Jimmy Butler. Chicago has 2 or 3 closers. The Nets have 2 or 3 closers. Milwaukee has 3 closers. They have Jimmy Butler, and that's it down the stretch. Who do you like in the West? Who do you like in the East?
Well, coming out of the East, I have to agree with you. I definitely agree with Milwaukee. Prior to them getting somebody, and I would have said Philadelphia, but they screwed that up by bringing that Kardashian curse over with them on that trade. So Philly's out. I'm sorry. We got our good friend Ray Cayasso, Rafael. I'm sorry. Harden just killed your chances at getting to the finals.
George,
so I got Milwaukee, but
we talked about this in a group chat, and how can Philly fans believe that they're going to win when Doc Rivers has 29 losses in the playoffs when his team's about to clinch, and James Harden has come up traditionally short in the playoffs? In what planet did Philadelphia think now we're taking these two underachievers and they're going to overachieve?
Well, I'll tell you, if they wouldn't have made that trade, I had them going to the conference finals against Milwaukee. I really did. I thought that team was that talented. Now they'll look good. Harden will look good in the regular season, and come crunch time in the playoffs, he'll probably have a hamstring issue or hang out all night at a strip club or something and just play like crap in a game that they need him. Yeah, I'm not hiding how much I don't like the guy. Um, I don't think it's going to be the Nets. I actually think Chicago is going to get into the finals, conference finals. Don't sleep on the Bulls. I think they have a tremendous team. I think the Nets will get to the conference semifinals, but I got Chicago and Milwaukee out of the East. And in the West, depending how CP3 is when he comes back, Phoenix should get there. And it's going to be a toss-up, I think, between Golden State, because I think Golden State is playing tremendous
All
this
depends
year.
on Curry's health,
All
obviously.
depends on Curry's health. Golden State, and look out for Denver. I've been on Denver's bandwagon for a couple years now. I think they have the team, if they can get healthy, to make a run into the conference finals.
By the way, for all you Chicago fans, like George is saying, Chicago is now 1-14 against the top 3 or 4 teams in the East. So Chicago, they are not getting to the conference finals.
Well,
Sorry.
they get hot at the right time. That's what matters. Get hot at the right. They're going through this right now, but I think they have the players that can make a good run.
Okay, now one of the things I will say, talking about the NBA and real quick, March Madness, George, who do you like getting to the Final Four in March Madness? Your USC team lost. Everyone's talking about Gonzaga. Listen, St. Peter's is a great story. They're not getting to the Final Four. I like some of these teams. I do like Duke. Obviously, I'm a Duke fan. But you have teams like Arkansas playing well. Don't count out Houston, who's playing today. Who I'm shocked that North Carolina beat Baylor.
So am
Any
I.
big upsets? Anything that shocked you in the opening round?
The opening
Kentucky losing
round.
to St. Peter's was a happy moment for you.
Yeah, I was actually shocked. I was really surprised. I actually had Kentucky in the Final Four, believe it or not. I had them knocking out Baylor in the Sweet 16. But right now, that's probably the biggest shock, them losing and how they lost. My Final Four, I had Gonzaga, Arizona, Kansas in the Final Four. So those three are still alive. Right now, out of the East, I think who wins Friday between UCLA and North Carolina is going to represent the East in the Final Four.
He's doing a tremendous job at UCLA.
He is. He's doing
I
a
mean,
tremendous job.
he's doing a great job. I think I think I have Arizona playing Duke, and I have Arizona winning it all.
I got Gonzaga winning it all, but I'll tell you this: after yesterday's game, they get pushed when it's going to come to free throws. They're in trouble because they can't hit a free throw to save their life.
Timmy's been horrible shooting free throws.
The
And
whole
by the way,
team has been horrible.
I love seeing Penny Hardaway coaching on the sideline in Memphis. Love seeing
Yeah.
that. All
I
right,
think
George,
he's going to do a tremendous job.
let's talk about something that's really annoys the hell out of me. I'm not saying this to overhype this team, but I think this is the greatest lineup in the history of Major League Baseball. You have guys at 7 and 8 who can hit 30 home runs. George, am I wrong to think this is the most explosive lineup ever assembled in the history of the NBA and Major League Baseball? And let me guess. So now hot dog prices at the stadium are $50, parking $7,000. I mean, you look at this payroll; it's insane.
Well, I hope they keep parking low because that moron who used to own the Dodgers, that I refuse to say his name, gets part of that money, and I don't want to give him a dime. I'd rather park along the side street and walk up instead of giving him money. I'm not going to surprise me if the Dodger dogs are going to go up. It's like $8 now. They're probably going to be $15, $20 to help pay for these contracts. Yeah, on paper, this lineup is fearsome on paper. But what makes this lineup even better is the approach that the Dodgers have. They grind out at bats. They're going to make the pitchers work. They're free swingers in a sense. They will hit a ton of home runs. At least they should, but they're going to grind out at bats. You're going to see them take 6, 7, 8, 9 pitches at bats.
Which is what the Yankees did when they were winning. So in the 4th or 5th inning of a playoff game, your pitcher has 100 pitches. George,
Exactly.
When you look at this lineup, are you like, how do we not score 7 runs a game?
I look at it, you expect it, but I'm also looking at the pitching staff. That's where my issue is, my concerns. The pitching staff. This team should, if they stay healthy, should score a ton of runs. but it's can the pitching keep up with it? Because the starting rotation is thin this year. We
And
know
middle
they got
relief and the middle relief is in question mark, right?
well more of the back end.
Right.
Kenley Jansen left. I had a feeling he was going to go because he said he wasn't taking a pay cut. And I wish him the best of luck in Atlanta. I think he's going to do great there. I hope he does well, except if he pitches against us, the Dodgers. So I would assume that Blake Trinan will now take the closer's role. He's got some closing experience out of Oakland. So they are going to have to address who's going to be the setup guy. The starting rotation, you got Kershaw, Urias, and Bueller. And Haney, they signed him to a 1-year deal, Andrew Haney, so he should be the 5 starter. But they still need to address that 5th starter until Dustin May comes back this summer from Tommy John. So right now
And
you're
what are they
looking
saying? Late July, June, late
July,
July?
August, probably he'll be back. So right now you're looking at the Catman, Tony Gonsolin, maybe David Price, and there's still the whole question mark about Trevor Bauer. Um,
By the way,
truthfully,
David Price has been a model citizen in LA.
oh yeah,
No
he is.
problem. He goes to the bullpen. He'll be a spot starter. He's done everything they've asked. He's kind of like Carmelo Anthony with the Lakers. Like, yeah, whatever you need me to do, I'll do. He's matured in that regard.
Yeah, I prefer to keep him as a long relief
Well,
pitcher and maybe as like you said as a spot starter. I would figure that Gonsolin's going to get the spot because honestly, I don't see the whole situation with Trevor Bauer getting
resolved.
decided. Yeah, it's and I was never on board with him signing him anyways. I don't like his antics off the field, and again, if what he did, I know they're not charging him with anything. The DA decided not to bring charges against him, but if he did what the woman accused him of doing, I think he should be, run him the hell out of LA.
Yeah.
And no woman deserves that, and I have issues with it. Coming, having daughter, and it just rubs me the wrong way. Even before all this stuff
Not
came
just
out,
that, like people say this all the time, like, oh, you can't take his ability to earn away if he makes one mistake. No, no, no. He could get another job. There's just no place for that in sports, in politics,
there's
in
no place for
entertainment.
that in life.
Yeah,
Period.
exactly,
No
exactly,
place for that in life. And
exactly.
this is coming again. I have a daughter. I have nieces. This is coming. Believe me, if I saw him and it's true, I would beat the ever loving hell out of the man.
Look what's his name? The MMA fighter just did. He's in jail because
You know what?
yeah.
Joe Rogan said something on his podcast about that, and he goes, "I wish he wouldn't have used the gun. I wish he would have gotten with his bare hands." And
That's what I said too.
I couldn't agree more.
And I can't stand Joe Rogan.
Same here. I don't listen to his podcast,
Yeah.
but I've heard some stuff and I just don't agree with him. But I agreed with that. No woman, no person, I should say, because it's not really reported, but it does
No
happen to
human
men too.
being.
No
Put it
human
that way.
being
Exactly.
should ever go through that.
Right.
And like I said, beyond that, I don't like Trevor Bauer. I don't want him here, especially with this going on. He brings a negativity to the Dodgers. He's not what Dodger baseball represents. He needs to go take the loss, cut his ass, whatever, let him go, just pay him his damn money. Get him
Well
out of here.
said. Well said, George. So, am I wrong by saying this? But I think that Chris Taylor is healthy. He could be the key to this lineup late in the lineup because when this guy's healthy, he can put up numbers and he's very dangerous.
Very dangerous, but I think the big key for that line, Cody Bellinger.
Yeah,
He
good point,
struggled
Jim,
all
yeah.
last year, and people need to remember he was coming back off of shoulder surgery. So it took him on. He wasn't right. He changed his mechanics to compensate for recovering from that injury, and it screwed up his swing big time. If he can get his swing back the way he had it in 2019, batting 7th in that lineup, look out.
Is it overstating it? I know the pitching is in question, but I say the Mets, just by showing up with their pitching staff, should win about 80 games. Can this team be a 90-game winner just by showing up? Are they
No,
that good?
no, you can't just show up and expect to win 90 games. Yes, they have talent, but you can't just show up and expect to win. It just won't work in Major League Baseball. You have to put in the work. You have to be prepared every game. Every aspect of the game has to click. And if they just figure, hey, we show up, we got it, it's going to be a long season for Dodger fans.
Yeah, but George, you look at this team, okay? Hold on one second here. You look at this team, and I say to myself, okay, 106 wins in 2021, 106 wins in 2019, in a shortened season, 43 wins. When they won the World Series, 92 wins, 104 wins. This team just showing up wins 90 games.
They
I
don't
mean, they're
just show
that
up.
good.
That's the thing. They don't just show up. They come to play every game. They don't take a day off. That's what makes this different. Dave Roberts, they bought into Dave Roberts from day one. They work. Everyone, it's Hollywood's glitz and glamour. This is a blue collar team, believe it or not,
Okay.
because they grind out at bats. They
Like
work.
their manager was.
Exactly. Again, this is what I love about it. They're grinders. It's not all glitz and glamour. Yeah, they got some great talent. Mookie Betts, Kershaw, Freddie Freeman, who I'm a huge fan of. Even when he was at Atlanta, I've just been, hearing his story off the field, became a huge fan of his. But these guys work. That's what makes them great.
George, how good can my Mets team be this year?
I think, if that offense clicks, I think they're going to give Atlanta a serious run for the East. If everything falls into place the way I see that team, they could easily win 95 games. Easily. But it's going to depend on that offense, because you got Bassett, Scherzer, and DeGrom. Those guys love to pitch. They love to grind it out. Those guys alone should win 50 to 60 games
Yeah.
if they're doing everything right. It's going to be, how is your offense performing?
Yeah. Hey, listen, the Mets, and the biggest thing with the Mets is I like Buck Showalter for 1 or 2 years because he turns teams around, but he's had much more success than Tom Thibodeau, but he's like a Tom Thibodeau. After a year or two of 3-hour practices, playing your guys every day, players are like, yo, man, we can't keep this up.
Well,
And
I like to,
baseball's a long season.
yeah,
I think initially he'll do well.
I like to think he's learned his lessons,
I hope so.
coaching Arizona, the Yankees, and Baltimore. I'd like to think he's learned. Dick Vermeil said the same thing. He learned how he used to run practices. He had to change when he got to the Rams, and that's how the Rams won that Super Bowl year. In '99, he changed how he was coaching, because a lot of players would say, we're already tired in training camp. You got to change what you're doing.
Yeah.
So if Showalter's learned his lesson, it's going to be, I think, between them and Atlanta. I just think Washington they're going to be on the fringe, but I just don't see them getting over the hump. It's going to be New York, Atlanta in the East, and both teams are healthy.
Greg says, how much success have they had? The Yankees have made the playoffs 6 out of the last 7 years. So in baseball, when your payroll is 300 million and the Pirates have a payroll of 40 million, you're going to have better players.
Well, I'm going to say this, and I'm pretty sure Yankee fans agree with me on this. It's not enough just to get to the playoffs. The Yankees,
but they are successful. They are successful.
They win. It's not successful if you don't win a championship. I've always said that the only team who's successful, there's only one team every year. It's the one who holds up the trophy. Everyone, they had a good year, not a great year.
Bengals. Wait, George, let's back up on that topic. We got like a minute or two left. The Bengals were successful this year.
They were. They were successful. They did a tremendous job, but they didn't have a great year.
It's a great year for them.
No,
they were at the bottom. They've been at the bottom of that division for years.
Yeah, you can't have that. We had a great year. To me, it's like you're accepting a participation trophy by saying that. And you can't. Yeah, they had a good year, but they can build. They can get better.
I disagree. I think getting to a Super Bowl is a successful season.
It's a good year, but you don't. To me, like it's a great year. It's like, okay, I'm going to settle. It was good enough just getting there, and it's not. It was, and Burrow, he's going to come back hungrier than ever next season. And I think he's going to be MVP next year. My honest opinion, especially if they address that offensive line, they got a good chance to get back. And seriously, they had a good look at it this year in the Super Bowl. It was a tremendous game, but you got to have it. That's just my attitude, the way I look at it.
Yeah, because you're spoiled, because you have the Dodgers, the Lakers, the Rams,
the Yankees, LA sports, like the Dodgers, the Lakers, they don't hang up conference championship banners. It's and the Yankees do the same thing. The Yankees aren't hanging the pennants.
That's a good point.
They're like, we're only going to fly World Series flags. That's what you look at.
Okay,
and that's what you have to strive for.
The Dodgers, you expect them to go to the World Series this year?
I expect them every year to go to the World Series if they stay healthy.
Right.
But it's not going to be easy.
You're not concerned about their lack of depth in the pitching?
Oh, I'm very concerned about it. The starting rotation it's going to be an issue this year. They got Kershaw's going to be a 6-inning guy now. Let's just face facts. He's an old 33. People forget he's only 33 years
But
old,
you
but
know
he's
what,
been
George?
around for so
Most
long.
most starters are 6 inning guys now. That's how baseball is.
Yeah, I don't agree with it. It's just the way it is. But Bueller could go 7, Urias can go 7, maybe 8, both of them. But I expect the way the Dodgers they run their team with the analytics, I expect most starters to go 6. So they got to address the starting pitching. It's got to get some depth. I know there's one kid in the minors. His name escapes me, that they're very high on as a starting pitcher who could make his debut later this year.
Okay.
So they do have some stuff there. They could make some trades during the season to bring in some starting pitching. The bullpen, they have to address the back end. I think still, Joe Kelly leaving, it hurts. But they got Gratterall back. Jimmy Nelson's coming back. I know they re-signed Danny Duffy, but he won't be available until maybe June or July off that injury. So when they get him, that'll be a good left-hander out of the bullpen. But it's more the depth of the starting pitching that's got me concerned.
All right, George, I'm going to do my closing rant. I want you to hear it because it's about Tom Brady, and I think you'll like it, and then we'll find out how we can follow you. All right. So Tom Brady is coming back. And one of the things that really annoy me is that no one has asked Tom Brady this question. Now, before you say, "Oh, Monty, you would take the money," no, I wouldn't. I'm not a scumbag. I am not going to take money out of people's hands who need it for my own personal benefit. Not one reporter has grilled Tom Brady about this, and they walk on eggshells around him, thinking he's the greatest guy in the world. And I'm going to prove to you that he's kind of a scumbag. Okay. Tom Brady's health and wellness company, owned by Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Tom Brady, received a government loan of just under $1 million. Okay. Now, according to Sports Illustrated CNBC, Tom Brady is worth over $200 million. $200 million. And during the pandemic, because of his association with the former president, he got this loan. Tom Brady didn't need the money. Okay. This is a program for people who were struggling during the pandemic, who needed the money. I don't get this. I don't get how we keep rewarding millionaires with more money when in society you're supposed to help those who don't. Brett Favre just had to return like $800,000 of money that he got. What the hell is going on when you're friends with this guy? You get money even though you're a multimillionaire. Tom Brady's net worth by his own, forget about his wife, by his own is $200 million. In 2019, he made $45 million. Why the hell is this guy getting a government handout? Oh, maybe that's why. So all you people who want to praise Tom Brady, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's an evil human being, but this was flat out wrong. He took money away from hardworking businesses who lost everything during COVID. And even if he didn't need that money, when you make $45 million, you don't need a loan from the government. Terrible job by him. Terrible job by people in charge giving millionaires. You just Google it. Millionaires got more money, the top 5% in this country, for loans for people who were supposed to get it, whose companies were worth less than $100,000. Disgraceful job by Tom Brady. You want a reason for me not to like this guy? Look no further. Forget about the fact that he left his girlfriend, who was pregnant 7 months in, to go on and marry and be with someone else. Forget about that. Do what you want. But when you take money out of hardworking Americans who pay your salary, you're a scumbag. End of story.
Well, Monte, I'm going to say this. Yeah, I agree with you in that sense. He shouldn't have taken the money, but can you fault him? And I have to be careful how I say this. He took advantage of the system that the people we elect in the Congress allows. They
100%.
can, so, in that sense, the rich get richer because we keep putting the people in that allow them to keep getting richer. We sit back and
100%.
people sit back and complain, and the only way change is going to be done is get your ass out and vote and get those people out.
100.
I mean,
But George,
less than half of the eligible voters vote.
100%. But Drew Brees donated $5 million to businesses who he started a whole charity for this stuff. Okay. Drew Brees is not taking money from
No,
the
I
government.
and I
The
agree
minute
with
Tom
you.
Brady got that money, he's such a scumbag. He's like, let me get mine. It's like an Aaron Rodgers, instead of saying, hey, let me send this back, which he's gotten some criticism over it. Okay. He's got, but
Good.
I'm talking about just the initial accepting of the funds. You
No, I
made
agree with you.
$45 million and you're accepting a $1 million handout. That money could have gone to 10 businesses.
Hell, he could have donated from his own personal wealth and used it as a tax write-off. I'm surprised he didn't
Exactly.
do that.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, I agree with you. All right, George, how can we follow you? How can we support you? When's your next Dodger annoying article coming out? I say it's annoying because I know they're going to be better than the Mets.
Well, my Twitter handle right there, you see it, the other G Lopez. I'm actually working on some stuff right now, getting ready for my Dodger article about the upcoming season. You know, what I expect, you know, what I'm looking at. I'm going to let spring training play out a little bit before I write it. So probably within the next week or two, I'll have it posted on Nuts and Bolts Sports. So you should see that coming pretty soon.
George, here's a suggestion. How about every week a half-hour recap on a podcast about the Dodgers?
I'm thinking about it. I'll be honest, but right now, priority one is I'm still trying to find a better job.
Right.
So I'm working on that right now. So and then with my kids running me ragged, and
You just
that's
don't
not even
have the
talking.
time. You don't have the time.
It's part of time. And I'm trying to find a 30-minute spot. I know I got a friend of mine who helped us when I was doing my podcast with Nisim Leon, the Cuban Lion, who helped me with editing, who helped us with editing the show. I know he would give me a hand getting it set up for editing. So I'm looking at it. But if I do it, it's not just going to be on the Dodgers. It'll be, pure LA sports. It might just like what Greg does with Greg's Gripes.
Right.
I'm looking at doing something like that, with LA sports. And if you guys haven't checked it out, I'm going to throw it out there. Listen to Greg's show, man. It's tremendous when he does his gripes. It's very entertaining, and he brings a lot of knowledge to what he has to with the stuff he talks about.
100%. And George, last thing I'll say, we're at 300,000 TikTok views. You're part of that with the clips. And also, every time I post a TikTok video, you must get so annoyed because I text it to you all the time.
Oh, no, I love it, man. I enjoy seeing it out there. I actually had a friend of mine screenshot it once, like, is that you? I'm like, yeah, that's me. So they were kind of surprised to see me there. They, I throw it out there, and then sometimes they'll catch it, or sometimes they miss when I'm throwing it out that I'm coming on the show to try to promote it for you. But it's amazing when I have friends screenshot picture on TikTok. Is that you? Yep, that's me.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, You're a big part of the show, so I appreciate it. Enjoy the games today. We'll see you down the road.
All right, and see you guys. Enjoy it, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Great job by George. Great job by Gus Frerotte, and great job by you guys. We're going to start doing the Monday night shows probably in a week or two. Talk about NBA, especially during the playoffs. Again, I want to thank Gus Frerotte. Always brings the knowledge. I want to thank George Lopez, who's loving life right now. If you're an LA sports fan, other than the Lakers, listen, you can't have everything, right? You can't have everything. So the Lakers are struggling, but as Rams won, the Dodgers are going to be just unbelievable. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. In the immortal words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back. That will never be broken.
They hit great shots. Luka, I think the Clippers have no identity.
Oh, look at that reaction. Look at that reaction.